Thank you, Barb. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to all of our veterans. Yay! I just can't help but be so excited to see all of you. I tell you, I had such an incredible time. I did some really, really deep spiritual work while I was gone, which honestly, when I packed my bag, that was not what I had planned. I was not thinking, I'm going to pack my bag, head off to the Mediterranean and do deep spiritual work. That wasn't it. But you know, it doesn't really matter where we're at or what we're doing, right? When we are in God's flow, when we are working on ourselves and on our path, no matter what we're doing or where we go, we have spiritual work to do. So I had some beautiful experiences, and I'm going to share them with you, not today, but as time goes on and they have meaning and purpose for the day, I'll be sharing them with you. But it was an incredible time, and I think that really it just brought me closer to you, which I really, really am grateful for. You know, I told you guys a few weeks ago that we were going to do a whole month of gratitude for November, which makes sense, right? It's Thanksgiving. It's supposed to be a whole month of gratitude. And I worked on this and worked on it and worked on it. And no matter what I did, I just couldn't bring it together. The talk just wasn't coming. Now, I have to tell you, my prayer every Sunday is that I speak to you what you need to hear. Of course, it's always what I need to hear too. Always what I need to hear. But my prayer is that you get something out of it, that I am just the messenger, that I'm just the vessel. I'm just the way through which God will tell you what you need to hear. And so I work hard on letting that come to me and trying really hard not to make it what I need it to be. You know, because I have an ego as big as the whole property. And I don't want it to be what I think I need to be talking about. I want it to be what it is God wants me to be talking about today. And as it turns out, it's very interesting. Oh, it's already up on the thing. It is for freedom we surrender. Now, I had a talk with somebody earlier in the week when I came back, one of the congregants, and we talked about the fact that it is through surrender that we win. That we have our greatest power in surrender. Which doesn't seem to make sense, does it? And when we talk about Veterans Day, we're talking about people who are willing to give the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom, for our way of life. And then we talk about possibly they may have to go to war, they may have to fight for that freedom. And what a dichotomy it is then to say, but it's in the surrendering that we win. It's an interesting dichotomy. You know, it's through our personal surrender. Even those men and women who offer their life, their time, their skills as our blessings, when they're offering those talents and time up for us, and they're actually surrendering to a power greater than themselves. I'm not even going to pretend that I can speak for what it's like to be in the service, any kind of military service. But what I do understand by talking to people is that without your chain of command, there is no order. Am I correct in that?
Amen.
Without your chain of command, there's no order. And so all of us are called to to give up our own personal will to a power greater than ourselves, to that ultimate chain of command. For our personal freedom, we're called to give up our personal will, our personal ego, our personal drive, and what we think we need, and what we're afraid of, and what we think we must have, to a power greater than ourselves. So through the surrender, not surrender as in give up. Oh, thank you. Blue lady in the front row. Not through the surrender of giving up, but the surrender of allowing that ultimate guide. Allowing God to tell us. Allowing God to show us. Through surrender, we gain power. How many times have you walked into a room and you start assessing what's going on, you start getting a little nervous, or you get a little uncomfortable, or you even get afraid? You know, maybe you're hearing something, or you think you're hearing something that makes you think you're going to lose something that you already have, not get something that you want. Or somebody's going to find out something about you that you don't want them to know. Hey. Hey. And you start getting a little nervous. So what do? First instinct is to fight, stand up, tell them, no, you're wrong, I know best, I mean, that's my natural instinct anyway, sorry. Some of us are just naturally fighters. I think I came out of the womb that way, and then had set up in my family of origin to make it perfect practice to do that on a daily basis. So I naturally jump into fight mode. When in reality, what really wins is when I can go, We have been doing this all morning, actually, me and that lady in blue in the front row. Okay. If I can just relax, if I can just let go, if I can just allow God to show my way, through surrender, I win. And the interesting thing is that winning doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to turn out the way that I had in my head. They may not, they very often don't, which means that I have to be open and available for what does come, so that I can recognize that even though it didn't turn out exactly the way I thought it was going to, you know what? It turned out even better. Or it has the potential for being better, even if I don't see it today. Because God uses all things for good, right? We all know that. God uses everything for good. Our view is so limited that if we allow God to work in our lives, step back, surrender, and allow God's will to work in our lives, we win. So, each of you got a prayer card today. I'm hoping that you all got a prayer card. If you didn't, there are some. Did anybody not get one? Oh, we do have a couple folks. Okay, Paula's going to bring them in. And Nancy, thank you both very much. They're going to bring them in. It's called the Grace Prayer. It was actually written by a prayer team at Unity in 1993. They wrote it based on, oh, Debbie didn't get one. Okay. Well, it was written based on the idea of Jesus and his prayers in the Garden of Gethsemane. It's called the Grace Prayer, but they subtitled it the Serenity Prayer. So first I want to read for you the scripture that they were holding in prayer at the time that they wrote this prayer. It's in Matthew 26. It is. It's Matthew 26:42. It's talking about Jesus when he knows what's going to happen, right? He understands that what's going to happen over the next day. And he's having his human moment. He's having his idea of what he thinks might happen. Like maybe he doesn't have to sacrifice, give the ultimate sacrifice for mankind. Maybe that isn't what he needs to do. But at the same time, he is willing to allow the will of God to happen. And he says, he went away a second time and he prayed, "My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done." May your will be done. Earlier in the text it says, and I love this piece because it shows a little bit, you know, we were discussing in our class Wednesday night about Jesus and how Jesus really was human. We were talking about that a lot on Wednesday night. Some people were a little bit surprised. They're like, well, wait a minute, he behaved all the time. I'm like, well, no, actually he behaved exactly humanly all the time, but was always willing to be in that surrender to God position. A little earlier it says, going a little farther, he fell with his face to the ground. "My Father, if it's possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." My will, your will. We hear that occasionally, right? Part of that is in this prayer, the grace prayer, which was founded basically on that scripture. And it says, "For thee I thirst. Into thy hands I commit my spirit, my soul, my body, my life." This problem, all unforgiven states, "Thy will is my will. Thy will be done through me. Heal me at death." Heal me at death. Can you feel that? Is there a little piece inside you somewhere that felt that when you said, "Heal me at death"? Reveal that which needs to be revealed. Heal that which needs to be healed, so I can glorify you, God, and live in the fullness of grace. And so it is. Amen. Now, for some of you who I know are in 12-step programs, there's a prayer that's very, very similar, and it's in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the 3rd-step prayer. I'm going to read that for you. We didn't print that out for you today. But it's on page 63. It says, "God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always." Very, very similar prayer. What I'd like each of you to do every day this week is to either use the grace prayer, or if you prefer and are working a 12-step program, use the 3rd step on page 63. Each and every day this week, when you get up, before you start into your day, before you make decisions about how you're going to go about your day. Now you notice I didn't say before you make decisions about what you're going to do, because we make plans way ahead of time. So often, most times, we already know what we're going to do, but we always have an opportunity to decide how we're going to go about doing that work. So before you make the decision about how you're going to go about doing that work, get on your knees if you feel comfortable doing so. Get in your meditation chair if that's where you're comfortable. But say either the surrender prayer, the grace prayer, or the 3rd step prayer on page 63. Every day, it will alter your life. I know I got way off base from the gratitude, didn't I? But I tell you what, by the end of the week, I bet you will be so much more grateful than you were at the beginning of the week. Another really cool thing about this book, on page 84, when it talks about surrendering to win. It actually doesn't say that anywhere. It doesn't say surrender to win, I don't believe. Thank you. No, it doesn't say surrender to win. I have interpreted that. But what it does say is doing God's will, is surrendering to a power greater than ourselves. And on page 84, it gives us steps to go through every day. Like if we end up in a situation where we're uncomfortable, and not if, actually, when we end up in a situation where we're uncomfortable. And I love that because in this book it doesn't say if this ever happens. It says when this happens, this is what you do. And it's in step 10. It gives us 5 steps of the 10th step that we can do every single day when we find ourselves in a position of being uncomfortable. It says, it says, we have entered the world of the Spirit. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Now, one of these days when I get into my speech 202 class instead of speech 101 class, I'll learn to put my little yellow thing down here at the beginning of my thing instead of way up at the top, right? Okay. So we continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. That pretty much sums up any uncomfortable feeling I ever have. When these crop up, we ask God to remove them at once. God, please remove this feeling of uncomfortability, of fear. I know through you all things are possible. Ask God to remove them at once. We discuss them with someone immediately and make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. How many of you can harm somebody pretty quickly if you're scared? Me too. And that's why we talk to somebody to make sure whether or not we need to make amends. Because oftentimes I'll go, oh no, that didn't hurt their feelings. They're okay. And then I call my prayer partner and go, hey, this is what happened. She'll go, did you make amends? No, but I'm going to do that right now. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. And we have ceased fighting anything and anyone. We have ceased fighting anything or anyone. We have surrendered to the will of God. We have surrendered to the easier, softer way. We have made a conscious decision to resist not evil. We have decided to put our faith into the hands of a power greater than ourselves. So what I'd like to do now is read to you the daily word and take you through a meditation. So if you'll get comfortable in your seats. Today's daily word is freedom. I am free through the freedom of spirit. The words of the prayer for protection were originally penned by James Dillett Freeman during the World War II years for those in the armed services. How many of you knew that? Today I use these words to bless all who serve and those who have returned to civilian life. The light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is and all is well. I am grateful for all those who have given of themselves that I might freely be able to make my choices in life. I celebrate my freedom by valuing it and using it wisely, making decisions that bless others as well as me. I am free through the freedom of spirit. And Corinthians 3:17 says, now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Comfortable in your seats. Close your eyes if you choose. The surrender of our minds to God mind. The surrender of our minds to God's mind resurrects His intelligence in us. And from the moment in which that resurrection begins in us, we find in life nothing more important to consider than God. Take a deep breath and release any tensions. Another breath, another release. Beneath the discords of the flesh, that is the health of the divine. Beneath twisted limbs and distorted forms is divine body. The surrender of our bodies to God brings perfect coordination in the members of the body. By our surrender, the health of God is resurrected in each one of us, and we are eternally healed. It is through surrender that we find our freedom. The surrender of our love to God's love eases the heart of every hurt. It makes us confident that nothing can go amiss with us or with those whom we love. The surrender resurrects in us God's love, which is the fulfilling of all law. The surrender resurrects in us God itself, which is love. Fears can no longer assail us. We are lifted up into the heaven of the Father's presence. Beneath the human talent that wrestles with inhibitions, that pleads and wails and shrieks for an outlet, is the divine genius. By the surrender of our talents to God, holy genius is resurrected in us. Every desire to surrender to God is a desire for the resurrection of God in us. Every partial surrender is a partial resurrection. It is for freedom that we surrender. We do not begin this work when we have accomplished a greater spiritual development. We begin it at our present development. The ability to surrender and to resurrect is now ours. The opportunity is today. The place is here. Let's take that into the silence. As we come back to this place and this time, we know that we are free. We know that now the Lord is the Spirit. And where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And so it is. Amen. Next, I'd like you to join us in a new song.